Have you ever been so hurt by someone that forgiving them feels impossible? Today, we're diving into an incredible story about betrayal, hardship, and the powerful choice to forgive. This is the story of Joseph. Joseph was one of Jacob's sons, and he was his father's favorite. This gift, meant to be a symbol of love, instead sparked a fire of jealousy in his brothers' hearts. Instead of talking about their feelings, they let that jealousy fester and grow into deep-seated anger. One day, when Jacob sent Joseph to check on his brothers in the fields, their anger boiled over. They hatched a terrible plan. They grabbed Joseph, ripped off his beautiful coat, and sold him to a group of traders heading to Egypt. In a moment, Joseph's world was shattered. He was torn away from his home, his loving father, and everything he had ever known, alone and afraid in a foreign land. It would have been so easy for Joseph to become bitter, to hate his brothers, and even to question God. But he didn't. He held on to his faith, trusting that God was still with him, even in the darkest of times. In Egypt, Joseph began his new life as a servant in the house of a high-ranking official named Potiphar saw this and put Joseph in charge of his entire household. It seemed like things were finally looking up. But then disaster struck again. Joseph was falsely accused of a terrible crime he didn't commit and was thrown into prison. Can you imagine the despair? Betrayed by his brothers, and now betrayed again. Locked in a cold, dark cell, Joseph had every reason to give up, to let anger and resentment consume him. But instead, he prayed. He continued to trust God's plan even when it made no sense. While in prison, Joseph's faith remained alight. God had given him the ability to interpret dreams, and he used this gift to help his fellow prisoners. His reputation grew, but still he waited. Years passed. Finally, the king of Egypt, Pharaoh himself, was troubled by a series of bizarre dreams that none of his wise men could understand. That's when someone remembered the young man in prison who could interpret dreams. Joseph was brought before Pharaoh. He explained that Egypt was about to experience 7 years of incredible abundance, followed by 7 years of devastating famine. He advised Pharaoh to store up grain during the good years to prepare for the bad. Pharaoh was so amazed by Joseph's wisdom that he made a stunning decision. He appointed Joseph, the former slave and prisoner, as the second in command over all of Egypt. Joseph was now in charge of saving the entire nation. Just as Joseph had predicted, the famine came. It was severe and widespread, and people from all over the region traveled to Egypt for food because Egypt was prepared, and who showed up one day desperate for grain. Joseph's very own brothers. They stood before him, bowing down, and they had no idea who he was. But Joseph recognized them instantly. Imagine the rush of emotions, the pain of their betrayal flooding back, the memory of being sold into slavery. He now had the power to do anything he wanted to them. He could have taken revenge, and no one would have blamed him. But Joseph chose a different path. He tested his brothers to see if their hearts had changed, and he saw that they were filled with remorse for what they had done. Finally, he could no longer hide his identity. He revealed himself, and his brothers were terrified, expecting the worst. But instead of punishment, they received grace. Joseph wept and embraced them. He spoke some of the most powerful words in history. "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good." He didn't hold on to his anger. He understood that God had woven his suffering into a beautiful tapestry of redemption, using his painful journey to save countless lives, including their own. Joseph forgave them completely, brought his entire family to Egypt, and provided for them. The story of Joseph teaches us that forgiveness is one of the most powerful choices we can make. It doesn't erase the past or excuse the wrong, but it frees us from the chains of bitterness and anger. It allows us to trust that even in our deepest pain, God can work all things for good. Thank you for joining me for this incredible story. If it resonated with you, please like, share it, and subscribe for more content that inspires and uplifts. See you next time.